Hey everybody, Escape211 here, and I want to do a video where we talk a little bit more about pilots. Now, I obviously talked about pilots when they first came in. I've talked about it on my live. We've all talked about them, but I kind of wanted to come back and look at them after we've sat with them for a little bit and discuss the whole state of it, right? All right, I still think pilots stink overall, but it's really just some issues that I have with it. The idea of pilots is not a bad thing, right? They actually can be really cool and fun. I like the idea of what they're trying to do here. I just think the execution of it isn't the greatest. So I want to talk about my three biggest issues for pilots, because I don't want this to turn into a rant, and I want it to be something where we can be constructive and then give some suggestions with those, and then you guys can tell me some of your issues too as well. But the first biggest issue, and this is a biggie, is the new currency that they've added into the game and the overall economy. Now, if we look at how we've earned coins and A-coins and all that stuff in the past, it is mainly through tourney, and we are able to, tailor our grind to it. You can grind as much or as little as you want, or of course you can pay for currency, but it made very much that time versus money element feasible for everybody, right? Now, if you grind really hard in tourney over the course of a week, you can actually do pretty well. You can get pretty far, and you can get probably 3,000-ish A-coins if you can stay near the top, which isn't too bad. Obviously, you can get drained in doing this, so you definitely want to take breaks here and there, but it allows you to get chunks of A-coins in a certain way, even if you're a free-to-play player. We don't have that capability when we look at pilots. Each pilot, for each one, we have the ability of doing our dailies. Let me get into it here. And you have just these. These are the pilot mark dailies you can get. You can get 110 a day. But if you look at the upgrading process as you do pilots, the first few levels are easy, and then it gets insanely hard. When you get to 4, 5, and 6, you're looking at thousands of pilot marks, and it's going to take you a long time to do this. As a free-to-play player, this will take you over a year to get a decent pilot hangar ready to match the end game of people who can pay money right now. It's insane. And then the implants get even worse than that, because you're using some of your credits to try and make the scrap through the store. So it's just going to drain you of one of your regular currencies to try and get this new currency. And in my opinion, that's just all a mess. It just makes it way too hard as a free-to-play player to even sustain in this world. I think what they need to do is have some kind of tourney that allows us to gain some of these pilot marks or this scrap, or both. Either that or some kind of event, like maybe one of the events that we do here, a development derby, something like that, something that allow us to get some of those resources aside from just that daily simple challenge stuff that we have. If they're able to implement something like that, that'll be a huge difference. Now, it doesn't have to be the exact same as the 5v5. It could be CPC based, or it could be 2v2 based, or it could be, the free-for-all mode that they're going to be adding in, but something where we can tailor our grind a little bit like we do for tourney to allow us to get these pilot marks and the scrap will help out a ton. And I think that's the biggest issue right now. That's the biggest gap that the free-to-play player can't even get around unless they spend money. The only way we can do this is just the free stuff that we have access to daily, which is pretty minimal, and then we either have to spend other resources or buy stuff, most likely. It's very much tailored to paying players. So it leaves very little space, or no space really, for the free-to-play. And I think if they created some way for us to do some of that in a free sense, this would be far more manageable for most of the people here. And like I said, that's the biggest issue. All right, so that's issue number one that I think, is the possible solution for that. Number two would be the idea of changing implants, all right, and how expensive it is. The way they have implants set up right now is that you have to pay to change them. If I go to one of my mechs here, this isn't a really great one, but if I wanted to take off this implant on this, I either have to lose 75% of the scrap that I've put into this, or sorry, 70% of the scrap that I put into this, or spend A-coins. Now, 25 isn't much, and losing some of that scrap isn't that bad, but it goes up in scale, right? Let's say you've maxed out a rare and you want to move that rare onto somebody else. Let's say I had this set up here with this kind of stuff and this on kill shot, and I had maybe the dash ability for kill shot. I had the dash damage was on this. Now I want to take these shotguns and Jester and move it over to Shadow, because he's really good with the shotguns as well. So if I want to do that, I'd probably want to take that implant off of kill shot. Now if I maxed it out, it could be insanely expensive. I believe as a rare, it will be 1,500 A coins. Then as an epic, it will be 2,000. And then as a legendary, if it was maxed out as a legendary, that's 4,000 A coins. To be penalized that much just to take off an implant to move some of your stuff to a new player really discourages some type of, testing or playing around and playing with builds, which is what a lot of people like to do. I think that's really annoying. I think that's a bad idea. I think initially the idea for them was thinking like, hey, if they maxed out a rare, then if they want to take that rare off and put on an epic or a legendary one, they can get some of that scrap back if they want to pay some A coins for it so they can put it toward their new implant, which makes a lot of sense. But to be forced to do that every single time you want to move any implant and make it hard to you to specialize in any kind of implant setup for a mech, I think is a really bad idea. I think we should be able to take off implants, leave the different upgrades that we've done on them, and then when we want to scrap those or take the scrap off of it, then you can charge us either the A coins or the scrap to be able to do it so that we're still able to play around with builds, but when we want to move up in the implants, we can pay for it then. Because if we do it this way, no one's going to want to do that. And I think it's, it honestly feels like a money grab right now. And that is really cheap. I hate the way that feels. Everyone does. So I think this is something they fundamentally need to change, where we have control of when we spend those A coins to scrap the different implants that we want to get rid of. So that's number 2 and a possible idea to deal with that. All right. And then the last one, which kind of even goes with number 2, is just that Pilots overall promotes cookie cutter builds. All right, if we look at how this all works out, if you look at my hanger, it is right now based around, if I have gesture, I'm going to want to put just close-up stuff on it, and I'm probably only going to want to focus on one weapon. Here I have the shotguns. Usually it's this or the Arc Torrents with one of these close-up guys. If I'm going to be using Major or, Torchlight, I'm going to have specific builds for them because of their innate ability, all right? And, obviously we want to optimize things so it makes sense, but this doesn't promote those other kind of builds that other people do when they try to do like mixed builds. If you want to do carbines plus missile racks, that wouldn't be as fun. And the other issue is just how it plays out on the battlefield. Now here I have an example of a match when I played with, it's just against AI, but you can see that I can already see them far away and I can see the icon of who it is. And I already know, okay, if it's this pilot, they're going to be doing this kind of build. So I want to deal with them quickly far away, or I want to get up close and deal with them. It allows you to already know with just seeing their health bar far away how to tackle them. Of course, AI, they're a little more predictable, but even with players, if you see Faye far away, they're going to have rocket mortars and they're going to sit in the back. So you're going to have to charge them, or you're just going to have to deal with that for the rest of the match. So it just promotes that kind of a build, and I find that really boring. That's really my issue with all of this. So I think they should either come out with the ability for each of your pilots to have a secondary innate skill. So aside from just assault damage, maybe right underneath that, we could see a sub innate skill that we can tailor to maybe missiles or to, snipers or something like that, where we can play with the builds a little bit. Either that, or maybe more cool, I guess, would be coming out with dual innate abilities for new pilots. As a new pilot comes along, maybe they specialize in 2 different weapon sets, and it kind of evens out the balance of power for each one in that innate skill, so that, that way we get more new pilots and you'll have more pilots for us to buy and upgrade, but it allows us more flexibility in how we use each of these pilots, all right? Because overall, it's very cookie cutter. Even though it's fun to have new pilots and new stuff in game, it is a little too straightforward, and it's super expensive. If you're a free-to-play player, there's no way to catch up. So if we have ways for free players to grind with extra time to match the money spenders, as well as a way for us to be a little bit more experimental in how we use pilots, I think that'll be a lot better for what we have in pilots right now. Okay, obviously there's plenty of other lingering problems, right? We've always had the AI issues, and now it's even worse because they have higher level pilots than us. Matchmaking has always been a pain for us to deal with. The idea of just like all these new event crate rushes that we have, that especially during Christmas, man, they were very skewed for money. We hardly got any free or earnable tokens that we could get for this. Obviously, as they come out with new mechs and weapons, the higher level ones are going to be harder for the free-to-play to get, and I think they have to do that because it's a business and they got to make money. But some of this stuff, I think they need to handle better. One of the other things that people have mentioned, I'm not going to go on my progress path because it's way in the back, but some of the early game stuff now is insanely expensive. Panther and Killshot for brand new players are 1,500 A-coins to get right now. Now, they've claimed that this is a test, but they've done tests before and they've stayed in game. So I think this could even stay in game. And if it does, that's really going to discourage new players, whether they're paying or not, to stick around. If they can't get those 2 core mechs early on because they're so darn expensive, what are they going to stick around with? I mean, they're going to be using Paragon and Lancer and Juggernaut and MD. That's like the only credit-based stuff that you can get early on in the game. So I think some of this stuff, like I said, they're trying to make this more profitable for them as it's a business, and I totally get that, but I think they need to find the balance, and right now we don't have it here. It doesn't feel balanced overall. And that's been my overall issue with all of this stuff, man. I know a lot of you feel the same, but as far as pilots go, those are my thoughts of the 3 main issues that I have with them and some possible suggestions. So I'd like to hear what you guys think in terms of what you think the worst things about pilots are and some possible solutions for it. I'm hoping that this would be helpful for them to, gather some ideas and then hopefully make changes. But here's the other kicker, and I want to make this clear too. For those of you who do spend, if you happen to watch this, if you are frustrated with how this is going, how pilots is going, how matchmaking is going, I will say one of the biggest ways to affect changes in a game like this is with our pocketbooks. If they see that we are spending or shelling out even more money as they add this new stuff, for them, they just see that as being more profitable and successful overall. If we don't like the way things are going, not spending money is one of the most effective ways for us to change it. And I do think that that's an important distinction to make. Right? Of course, we can yell loud, we can be, upset about things, we can make suggestions and complain, but they do care about the money they make. That's the only thing that keeps this game alive and their business running. So we have to think about that. I'm not telling people that they shouldn't spend money if they want to. If you're enjoying the game, if you're happy with everything, and you want to spend money, by all means, continue to spend money. I'm not trying to tell people how to play the game, but my point is that if you are unhappy with the game and the state that it's in, and you're a person who usually spends money, peel it back, all right? If they start seeing less people spending money, they'll realize they need to change things. So that overall is what I was going to say on this. I probably already spoke too much about it, but I hope that's helpful for you guys. And like I said, feel free to comment below with your possible suggestions, solutions for some of the stuff that's in pilots right now and the state of the game. But otherwise, guys, we'll see you out there on the battlefield.